Farmers across the United States are predicted to lose money in the 2026 crop year. Markets are a mess, input and equipment are up, trade deals are strained. So how do we decide what to farm on a year like this? How do we make decisions when none of them will make money? Today we're going to walk through how I, as a farmer here in Kentucky, decide what am I going to plant in 2026 and how are we going to survive. So what went well in 2025? What we've seen here over the last 4 or 5 seasons is that extremely early beans seem to be able to yield ahead of the drought. So it seems like more and more we're getting mid to late season droughts here in Kentucky, and the late or double crop soybeans or later soybeans have been suffering through that drought and yields being lowered. So what we've seen is a trend of early planted soybeans, and I'm talking really early, March or before April 20th, so late March, early April, those beans are significantly out yielding double crop or late planted acres. So definitely one of the great things for us about 2025 was the early bean crop. And that's a trend, a 5-year trend or longer. From what we've seen, beans planted before the summer solstice just yield better. We don't really know how to explain it other than they just have longer photo periods. So they're receiving more sunlight, and because of that sunlight, they're better. Another great thing for us in 2025 was our corn yields. So our corn yields have consistently been getting better year after year for the last several years. We seem to have kind of hit a yield plateau, but it's a high plateau for yields. So corn yields have definitely been a plus. So another positive thing about 2025 was our corn yields here in Kentucky, or on my side of Kentucky. We had enough rain early to make a really good corn crop. Our corn was mostly made before the drought had set in, and so for us, our 2025 corn crop was a benefit. So when we're harvesting, we try to harvest right around 30,000 bushels a day, and that's kind of like a goal for us. That's what we like to see come out of the fields. In January is one of our busier hauling months. It's just because we don't have a lot of field operations going on, and so we're kind of low on help right now, but we all try to make 3 to 5 loads a day a piece. So 3 or 4 trucks running, 3 to 5 loads a piece a day. So combine logistics are always an issue. We got a lot of acres to get over and just one machine to get over it. And as you can see, we have our first breakdown for 2026 already 20 days in. It says good year. Is it going to be a good year? I don't know. So in the fall of 2024, we planted a canola crop and harvested it in the spring of 2025. I decided in 2025 fall not to plant a canola crop. The reasons I didn't plant it were we had significantly higher by $1 or so the price of canola. So I think in 2025 it was around $12.20, $12.30, something like that was our contract price. I barely broke even with it. I may have made it a little bit of money in 2025 with canola, but not a significant amount. Get into 2025 fall and price of canola has lowered to $11.20 or so, maybe lower than that. And just based upon my history of it in 2025, I felt like we were going to be significantly below break even. And not that we're not going to be that way in the corn or soybean arena as well, but I just felt like I'm a lot more comfortable in the corn and soybean acre than I am in canola. I don't know much about it. The harvest cost is significantly higher than it is in wheat, and just for those factors, I decided to grow wheat again as my spring crop, even though wheat is pretty significantly below break even as well. Yeah, so you heard some of the positives. There are always got to be negatives. So probably my biggest negatives in 2025 were quality of the wheat. That continues to be a problem here in Kentucky. It seems like each and every year for the last several, about the time our wheat comes off, we start getting inundated with humongous rainstorm after rainstorm, and that was another problem in 2025. The amount of rainfall that we received in May and June was just, we were unable to overcome it, and it gave us a really low quality for our wheat. And if you know anything about a wheat crop, a low quality wheat in an already suppressed commodity market makes for a big loser. And that was probably our most detrimental part of 2025, was the amount of quality dock we took on our wheat. In a normal crop year, we would normally have around a quarter of our acres in wheat to be harvested in that spring season. We backed off our wheat acres just because we're so far below break even with the amount of rainfall we've been receiving, the quality docks that we're getting. It's very difficult to raise wheat profitable. And so we just looked at it and said the risk outweighs the benefits. And we significantly reduced our wheat crop for 2026. Really too early to tell how good the wheat is going to be. It did get off to a really good start, so wheat looked beautiful growing off. It's got a really good stand. It's clean. There's not a lot of weeds in it. And so we have all the factors in place to have a good wheat crop, but so much of the wheat yield is determined in May and June. We won't really know what we have until then. So the second negative that I have for 2025 is also kind of part of wheat, but it's also part of some of our lower ground here in West Kentucky. Is very difficult to get on when it's wet. And so that forced us, a lot of our soybeans, either into the double crop situation, which were after wheat, or because of their low-lying status, it made us plant the crop very late. And with that, those soybean acres fell directly inside of a major drought with a lot of heat, and it just burnt those crops up. With soybeans already being unprofitable at good yield levels, when your yield levels are significantly reduced due to drought, it just made for a very difficult season for soybeans. So bad wheat year, overall bad soybean year here in Kentucky, with super low commodity prices. Pretty difficult to farm in 2026. We always start out by trying to plant soybeans. So we'll get into March. If we've got really good weather and good soil conditions, we'll push as hard as we can to get as many acres inside of that last couple of weeks of March as we can get. And then we'll try to get the soybeans planted. And a lot of this is dictated by weather, but we would like to see them all planted except the double crop by April 20th. That's kind of our goal. Now, whether we get that done or not remains to be seen. More than likely, most years weather will interfere with our plans, but that's our goal, is to get all our soybeans planted by April 20th. Corn, a lot like soybeans, we won't plant quite as early. Corn is a little less forgiving, needs a little bit warmer ground temperature, but we've consistently seen that our best corn yields come between the 12th of April and the 25th. So the bulk of our crop, we'll plant a little ahead of those dates, maybe a little after those dates, just to spread our risk, but we'll want the bulk of our crop planted in that time period. So when that time period hit, it's all hands on deck to keep the corn planter going and running as efficiently as possible. So in 2026, spraying usually starts our season out. Of course, we're hauling grain early to be able to relieve some of the later hauling logistics when we get more busy in the field. But spraying starts really early here in Kentucky. We'll be applying wheat. We always say in Kentucky, usually around the farm show. So in the state of Kentucky, the National Farm Machinery Show is our largest agriculture event here in the state. Our farm show usually happens the second week of February, and a lot of times here in western and central Kentucky, the sprayers are in the field putting the first shots of nitrogen on the wheat. So what we're looking to do in that time period is just give the wheat a kick start. It's starting to come. We're starting to get a few warm days mixed with some cooler temperatures, and it begins to bring the wheat out of dormancy and actively begins to let it grow. Usually within a couple of weeks of that, people are spraying their Harmony, and Harmony is a herbicide that just eliminates garlic and onions from the field. And you've heard me say this before, nobody wants onions in their crackers or their bread, and that's what we're trying to do. Harmony is just removing that garlic, wild onion from the field, preventing that from getting into the grain. And then after the Harmony sprayed on the wheat, a lot of people were beginning to make the first burn down pass or herbicide application in their corn and soybean fields. And basically what they're doing is they're cleaning the field up from noxious weeds and getting it ready for the spring corn or soybean crop. You know, and then by March or April, we've have emerging plants, and once the plants are emerging, it's a constant battle against weeds. You're gonna continually have weed pressure in the field, and the sprayer, you know, every few weeks has to make another pass on that acre to prevent yield loss from weeds in your crop. So I think there's a couple of trains of thought about what to plant in 2026. You have certain guys that are saying, well, you're going to lose money in all crops, so what is the least risky crop to grow? And I think a lot of people think, well, it costs the least to plant soybeans, and so we'll plant soybeans to reduce our input costs and hopefully lose the least amount of money possible. Versus there's a train of thought that thinks, well, soybeans are already going to be produced at a larger scale than normal. That's going to adversely affect prices just because there's going to be more acres in soybeans than normal. So a lot of your cotton and rice producers, because of the high input cost of those commodities, they're going to transition their operations to soybeans. So you're going to have more soybeans growing. The price of the soybean is going to have added pressure on it because of that added supply. And in my mind, you want to avoid that situation where you're already at a suppressed commodity price, and it's even more suppressed because of the amount of acres of the certain commodity, in this case soybeans, being out there in the field. I think there's something to be said this season about world corn stocks. So we're really close to a level that will support prices, and so I feel like we have more of a chance to have a weather issue, and it didn't happen in 2025. Most of the time we get a weather issue of some type that's significant enough to push corn prices up high enough to get them to a profitable level. That never happened in 2025, but we're at a slightly lower carry out in the world in 2026 than we were in 2025. And in my mind, that gives us a potential of a scenario where we come in here either in South America with their safrinha crop or in America with our spring crop, that we have a situation where it looks like the crop is going to be reduced, and that puts enough risk in the market to maybe give us some pricing opportunities. That's yet to be seen. We may see another year in 2026 where there is no pricing opportunities to price above a break even. We hope not, but that's definitely a risk that we're taking. That's our rough plan for 2026. Is it going to succeed? Is it going to fail? Who knows? But thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.